This is Jonathan Ferguson, the Keeper of Firearms and Artillery at the Royal Armouries Museum in the UK, which houses a collection of thousands of iconic weapons from throughout history. And I'm your host, Dave Jewett. Today we're taking a look back at some of the best games and weapons that Jonathan and I have discussed over the last 12 months. Leave your predictions, what you think made the list, in the comments below, and stick around to the end for a little wrap-up chat between me and Jonathan.
Oh, and as I haven't shown any guns, I mentioned Hot Fuzz. Hold that thought. So I'm very happy to have the same pistol that Nicholas Angel uses.
Now, without further ado, here is our best of list for 2025.
Now that looks like a pretty spot-on S.T.A.L.K.E.R Model L. Spanish take on, I was going to say the HK roller delayed system, but it's kind of the other way around. S.T.A.L.K.E.R were doing it first with engineers from Germany, and then it developed in parallel down two different avenues effectively. And this is directly parallel to the HK-33.
And it is just called the Model L in-game. It's another one where they've really not changed the name much.
Yeah, it's funny what's deemed okay and what isn't. And as I think you can see, I'm struggling to spot any significant differences. And it's beautifully modeled as well. You've got the weld seams, like that one. Really nicely represented. If my camera will focus, there we go, where my finger is. Yeah, I think this might be my favorite so far. The rear sight aperture has a V notch, which ours does not, and we only have the one, and without looking it up, I don't know if there is a Bergen with a close quarter V notch aperture. There's something very cool and Cold War about this, partly the green, the stamped metal, the chunky polymer. It's very cool. So the inevitable optic variant now, and that's a bit suspect. We do have polymer rails now. The F2000 has a polymer rail, remember rightly. Usually they're not, because polymer erodes, deforms, flexes more readily than machined aluminium. So you'll normally see a strip of rail screwed on or welded on or integral to a machined metal receiver. Now, because the S.T.A.L.K.E.R is a legacy design, what you will see, and I think different approaches have been taken, I think they all have a steel rail screwed onto the top here, with the rear sight housing left intact. Here, that's disappeared, and we magically have what appears to be an integral rail that also appears to be molded polymer. So I love the base gun. I'm not so taken with how they've adapted it for an optic.
Nitro and I were just discussing a certain puzzle we've found in the zone, but we can't quite seem to get all the pieces to fit. Maybe you can figure it out.
That's the most Canadian Ukrainian man I've ever heard. I'm not here to comment on accents. So this is in-game footage. Is it?
Yeah, the cutscenes are actually live, so if I were to drop a bunch of medkits and sausages on the table, they'd all be moving around. But
medkits and sausages, the Dave Jewett story.
The two methods of healing in S.T.A.L.K.E.R.
That's all in-game, which means everything you see there in terms of the components looks really good, really accurate. The way he is stripping that down is maybe a little lacking in the weight of the components. They don't seem to each have any mass in space. Yes, it's a little hard to describe, but this is the level of nitpickery that I have to descend to with that scene to actually try and criticize this in any way, because to actually have a fully realized virtual weapon, we are at a level of fidelity that's just so impressive.
So what are the actual parts that he's taking off the weapon? Because I guess you'd call this field stripping the AK, right?
Yeah, so he's doing it as he should. Magazine off. He's then cocking it, popping off the top cover, taking out the recoil spring and guide rod, removing the bolt carrier with the bolt. Now, what he didn't do, which he'd probably get shouted at or kicked for, is remove the bolt from the bolt carrier, because you can't properly clean the thing, and that's really why you would strip it like this. Then again, he's testing the character here, so you wouldn't necessarily need to take the bolt out, but that's really the only thing I would say. You've got two mags jungle taped together We have green polymer furniture. Oh, we're got a jam there. Love to see a stoppage and getting cleared. I don't know why it has. I haven't finished putting this back together, but I say I don't know why. I think it's probably because it was in prior games, but the upper handguard has 3 vents cut into it. That's something you could do with a Dremel, I suppose, if you wanted extra cooling. And given how much ammo you're putting through this thing in the game, then maybe that's sensible. I don't know, but it's not standard. So we've got a much higher fidelity to the real thing in this sequel, but I'm still seeing a bit of kind of leftover. We want it to look like the gun from our original game, is what I'm guessing that is. And grenade launcher is correct. GP25, I'm guessing. I can't get a great look at it. The GP30 is pretty similar, but we see the muzzle loading VOG25 grenade. That's correct. It goes in like a kind of like a muzzle loader. Well, exactly like a muzzle loader, because it is. By the way, you shoot people in the torso with 5.45 by 39 and they go, ow. That's maybe the most immersion breaking thing I've seen so far.
So this is actually a really interesting choice. We know the Sniper Elite games, they all take place in the Second World War. They all need a starting rifle. This time, we've gone for something more conventional, but probably not that widely known. And it's the M16 family of weapons. No, not that M16 family. Modification 16. And the general shape of the thing looks good. I think we might be seeing, I'm hoping we're going to see this length, because when I hear M16 carbine, I think of this. But what we've got here is a sort of one of the longer variants. You know, every game they want something different as a starting rifle, and they want a different roster of weapons, but they also want to keep the stuff that you know and love from other games if possible. So French, tick, correct period, tick. Now, bit of detail here. And by the way, the detail is looking great on these. I've already mentioned the markings. Even the shape of the trigger is... It's a fairly distinctive, crudely shaped, can I say that? It's quite a flat-bladed trigger, quite thick, and that's represented there. I think all the details are present and correct. This weapon, of course, has the very turned-down bolt handle, intended for compactness for use as a carbine. Still works pretty well. Might be handy for crawling around in the dirt as a sniper. That bullet's still looking a little funky, like it did in the previous game. Bit too cylindrical, bit too long and cylindrical. And of course, they've sort of had to standardize on one bullet shape for all of the weapons, so that I believe all the bullets look the same, which they in detail shouldn't.
I do like how suppressors are handled in the modern Sniper Elite games, and that there's like levels of your round being suppressed, whether you're just using a suppressor or you've got a suppressor plus subsonic ammunition, and that can really change on how people are able to hear you.
Yeah, I think it was a good way of tackling it. And this was one of the conversations I had with the developers when that sort of system was first introduced, is we really want to do suppressed rifles. We know that it wasn't really a thing at this time and in these places, but how can we do that in a way that's sort of plausible and technically correct? There's the report at the muzzle, there's the supersonic crack of the bullet, and potentially noise at the back end as well, depending on the design. So, and you want to try and stamp down on all of those things to make it super quiet. And I think that worked really well to, given the large open spaces that you have in the game, you can use your silencer, suppressor, whatever you'd like to call it, and it will give you a certain advantage. If you can get and sort of keep and jealously hoard your subsonic ammunition, you get that double effect, as you say. Is that realistic for every type of weapon in the game? Probably not for most of them. There were not readily available subsonic loads for every type of rifle ever invented. It's something that's specific to, and really much later as well. But it's something that could have happened, and so they've brought it into this series of games. And I think it's a classic compromise of rule of cool, depth of gameplay, really lending itself well to the stealthing around until everything goes wrong, of course, inevitably, if you're me. And you end up having to submachine gun everybody. It's a compromise I can certainly
certainly live with and even enjoy. The brightly coloured tips on the bullets, that's really a gameplay reminder as to what it is you're using. Nobody is going to be redesigning and painting the tips of bullets for subsonic loads, certainly not at this time. You do have different coloured bullet tips for tracer, API, that kind of thing, but your typical sniper bullet's going to look the same coming out of the gun. It's our old friend, the MP7, or bits of one anyway. Most of one. Is that not the MP7A1? I'm gonna have to check this. I don't want to look.
This is the MP7 A1. The A2 is in the game. The biggest difference being the A1 has the flip down foregrip, and the A2 you can actually put your own foregrip on the Picatinny.
The ones we have, all three of them. This is our only select fire one. This is the original MP7 with this texture, I guess similar to what the pistols of the day had. What's on the screen there, I believe, is the A1, which has little oblong bumps on the grip panels. Well, not grip panels, but the sides of the grip. And I think that was the only change, or the only really noticeable change. There are a couple of minor changes to the receiver as well, but it's hard to compare because we don't have one. And then there's the A2, which replaces the folding grip with Picatinny rail. Oh, nice. Okay. Oh, hang on. Is that you manipulating the cocking handle without firing it?
Yes.
I forget you can do that. I love the ability to do that, and I don't know why, because it's mostly pointless.
So we've got a failure to eject here.
Yep. Seen. Sticking out, stovepiped out of the ejection port. Ah, so cool. I really love the stoppages thing. So nice to see that. And then, I mean, I don't know what anyone's official drills are for clearing stoppages, but it makes sense to me to do what's done there. Pull the cocking handle back, free up the fired cases. There's a good sense there of the difficulty of controlling the thing. So it is controllable, and the player's keeping it on, but it's moving around a lot, and you get a real sense that they're having to muscle it to keep it on, which is about right for this thing. Just with the iron sights, it's really very compact, and you can pick it up and fire it as is, or you can transform it into a little carbine / submachine gun. Optics, accessories, as we see here, suppressors. That's pretty tricked out. So that's the A2. I think it does come in black as well, but you typically see it in that sort of sand color. It's that slightly disturbing baby poo yellow that HK seems to have veered ill-advisedly toward.
So something I picked up on, because I've not played Tarkov in a while, and I knew you could collapse the stock, take pieces off the weapon. If you took the magazine out in some cases, the weapon would be smaller, especially if it's a very long magazine. And you said during our H3 episode that the main thing with collapsible stocks is storage. When I was playing Tarkov, I was like, that's how it's used in Tarkov. You collapse the stock so you can fit a bigger gun into your backpack and take it out of the raid, or it takes up less space in your stash back at base. It all
That's
like
so good.
Size optimization's super important in Tarkov to just carry things around or store things. And I was like, yeah, because you never do use the collapsible stock in combat in Tarkov. It's just for storing the thing.
If quarters are that tight that you're going to really struggle to get this in front of your body for shooting, and maybe you're not even using the sights, then you might actually fold it up and shoot. Classic push-pull MP5K style. It's rare, it's specific. Typically, the reason for it is exactly as you said there, to make it smaller, or even carrying it around. So something like this could be more of a PDW type weapon, where ideally you don't need to use it, but if you do, you can quite quickly, you see the enemy's coming, you can flick this out, flick that out, and engage. And maybe if you've got time, flick up the these iron sights. It's fantastic to see that. Why haven't I played this game yet? I'll tell you why. It's because I get ruined by 12-year-olds and there isn't a story.
Calm down, eh? No need for violence. Let's see.
The Webley. Now, of course, we've got to have a Webley in the game. Of course, this is almost certainly a surplus civilian-held example. Unless you get it from soldiers.
Soldiers and outlaws and ne'er-do-wells as
Okay.
well. It's pretty common throughout the game.
And there is a late Mark 6 that I've just grabbed on the basis that if you're going to find one and it's one from like reserve military service, it would be late. So this one's made at Enfield, 1925. So they were making these things, I think until 26 at least, overlapping with the early number 2 revolvers. Loads of detail there. Really closely modelled on the real thing.
If you were to do a partial reload of the cylinder, I'm guessing all the rounds would pop out, not just
No.
the unfired ones.
Nope, only the fired ones will pop out.
So that is accurate in the game then.
Yes.
Interesting.
Based primarily on the weight of the rounds, the extractor kind of overrides them. What isn't modelled, and this is from memory, having not done this for a while, but the extractor starts to pop up the rounds and then slips past them because they're too massive for it. But very useful feature, needless to say. Flicking the barrel assembly shut is not recommended, but does work. You are going to wear your revolver out doing that, but hey, that's hardly a concern in a life or death situation. I like the fact that you can see right through the empty chambers. I think this might be the best representation of the Webley that we've seen. I've had to go back again because I keep missing the first page of information.
On the super shotgun.
Yeah.
Do you want me to give you a dramatic reading?
Go on then.
Inspired by the Slayer's success with the modified combat shotgun, the engineers of the Night Sentinels were tasked by the makers to create a weapon of pure devastation. One that would not merely serve, but define the battlefield. Built with dual barrels to amplify its destructive potential, the Super Shotgun was constructed using the strongest materials in Argent Nerve. Capable of enduring the unimaginable forces it unleashed, its design incorporated a unique black powder derived from the fossilized remains of ancient beasts native to their world. The weapon's
it did.
thunderous roar became a harbinger of doom, one so feared that demons would falter and retreat at its unmistakable sound, like a clarion of death wielded by the unyielding hand of the Slayer. There you go. That's what the page says. Just in case you didn't get it.
Thank you for that. Definite family resemblance to the one we just saw on this one. And it appears to be completely different from the old super shotguns. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh yeah, big time. Well, this one's lever action.
Completely different. It's not just lever action, it's also a flintlock. It has cocks on it. Don't laugh.
Sorry.
This is serious.
Serious business.
Yeah, I like the idea that you can make black powder from demons. So if I hadn't already seen it and you told me that, I wouldn't have known that was a lever, but it does have a lever on it. So it's a lever action double barrel, which makes no sense. Never mind. It has 2 external locks on it, or versions of locks. They're a bit weird looking, very stylized, and the things on the side are ostensibly flintlock cocks, not hammers, but cocks, as in a pecking male chicken, which is where it comes from. And they look like they are some sort of beast, and they also look like they have claws. Instead of flints, they have claws from some demon that are doing the igniting, which is genius, with the slight caveat that I don't know how that's happening. Like, what are they scraping? How are they making the sparks? Maybe we'll see. Maybe we won't. We probably don't care either way. Interestingly, we have, as well as various decoration, we have a sword depicted on the side. And I honestly expected them to give him some sort of legendary sword thing. Maybe they have as well. I just haven't seen it. But anyway, this is kind of referring to it being like a knight's sword almost. And we can't move on before I mention it has a mail grip. Mail, M-A-I-L, or M-A-I-L-L-E if you prefer. Chainmail if you must, which is very appropriate to this more medievally setting that we sort of have, or fantasy medieval, very least, and it looks very cool. I would normally say something like this is too busy looking, but I don't think I'm seeing the cocks fall, but they clearly are falling against a frizzen. So on the face of it, these are auto-cocking flintlock locks. So it's black powder made of demon bones or ashes, and it's ignition via demon claw. I love it. I absolutely love that idea. I did see some sort of cosmetic, or what I thought was cosmetic nod to flintlocks. I thought they were just going to gloss over it like every other game has. I'm fairly confident they're telling us that this is flint and steel, but it's not flint, it's claws. Now, how it's recharging itself, I don't know, but we do have flintlock repeaters, some of them here in this collection. There's one that fires a shot every time you pull a trigger, called the Belton. So it isn't absolute, considering how outlandish these games are, I am not going to say that this isn't possible in this universe. Like, it's not totally contrived and hand-waved.
The functionality combined with the shield works so well as well. Spinning it Arnold Schwarzenegger style from Terminator 2 to reload it because you've got a shield in your other hand. Masterstroke.
Oh, sorry. What I've just realised that I'm being dense about is that the lever will be doing the cocking of the locks. So it's break open, and admittedly they could have had the break do the cocking, but you wouldn't have to do it that way. You could have it, or it sort of does both at the same time. So are we seeing a latch?
Because it's break open, but it's not like break in half. Like it opens ports.
No. Yes. Got it. That's the missing piece. So the lever is doing the work of opening the breeches and cocking the locks and priming as well. Now there are magazine primers that could do that. Does this look plausible in that way? No, not really. Well, there'd have to be some concealed mechanism that is delivering the powder to the pans. That's the only bit missing from this design on the exterior. But I'm prepared to accept that there's something going on inside mechanically. This thing's big enough to conceal that. So lever opens up the breeches, cocks the cocks, primes the pans, closes the frisons. You pull the trigger, the cocks fall, the claw strikes sparks. The sparks flash the priming powder in the pans. The main charges go off. And then you lever action it again. I never thought I'd say this, but this is almost plausible.
Wow. Heck of a graphical upgrade there, including, so on a Glock, a lot of you will know this, but we have a polymer casing on the magazine. Some modern ones don't do that. They just have a steel body like a traditional mag. But the Glock mags, typically steel liner, polymer casing, and the amount of wear and damage to the outside, that looks like a genuine, really worn Glock mag. The gun itself, I mean, wow, the X-ray views, this is beyond night and day difference between the two games. I can hold that up to the screen and can't fault it. I love seeing the rounds go in and move down through the witness holes.
So a note on that, as the magazine gets more full, it slows down. It gets harder to push the rounds in. The first 2 or 3 go in like butter. As you get to like rounds like 10, 11, 12, it's simulating the extra force that requires.
Again, very cool. Really want to see it in VR. By the way, all that X-ray detail, off the top of my head, looks bang on. It's like World of Guns in the game.
So you'll see black flashes. That's the game simulating the shooter flinching or blinking.
No way.
I do turn it off because it makes it harder to showcase the game and the gameplay, but I wanted to ensure there was one clip that showcased that, because if you're just playing normally, you will flinch at a lot of your shots just after they go off as a human response.
The first, I don't know, however many tens or hundreds of rounds, depending on who you are, whether you're shooting indoors, what the report of the weapon is, yeah, you're going to get that involuntary flinch. I still do it on our indoor range, depending on what the weapon is, partly because I don't shoot regularly enough to train that out fully. So sometimes I don't do it, sometimes I do. Movie actors famously do it a lot, partly because they're shooting full charge blanks indoors and because they didn't traditionally used to have much experience. So they are, I have to assume they are simulating the experience of someone that's somewhat familiar with guns, but is not proficient with them. Now, just saw there, this is perhaps relevant to what I just said as well. We've got a stovepipe, classic stovepipe failure to eject there. Just seen a failure to eject, then we've seen a failure to extract. I'm guessing it also simulates double feeds where you fail to extract, but then the next round is trying to enter the chamber, but there's a round already there.
You can actually create a double feed by ejecting the magazine, inserting a round through the ejection port, then inserting a magazine, making the slide go forward. So not only do they happen
naturally throughout the gameplay, but you can simulate one just through your actions, which is really interesting. I had to look up how to do it, but the fact that you can do it is pretty fascinating.
I always love stuff that you don't have to do, but that you can do. That's the ultimate sort of immersion, really. Well, it is the 1960s, so a stoner seems appropriate.
Was that a pun?
No. A bit.
The term system weapon refers to a design where most of the parts are interchangeable, allowing you to create a lot of different variations from a single original model.
Yes, good description of the modular Stoner 63.
Modeling the different ejection ports for the links and the cartridges as well.
Yes. I don't think the game lets you mix and match parts in the way that he's explaining.
No.
No, bit of a shame. It's such an interesting game because it operates like a sort of coffee table gun book as well as being a game. And I would have loved it at the time for that reason alone, had I played it. I'm sure of that. It's gun nerdy enough, and the nitpicks that I pick up on now, I wouldn't have picked up on then almost certainly. So I like the get some screaming he's doing, but yeah, XM207 XM207 E1 to be precise, marked on the side. Pretty much what he's got here. There are a couple of slight variations of this configuration. Slightly different gas blocks, shorter barrels used on some of the ones in Vietnam as well, but this looks to be identical to ours. That door on the side that he's flipping shut on the reload does exist. It's not just a door to cover the rounds, it's also how you get the box in. So it's almost like a magazine reload, but with a box of a belt. Really an ideal weapon for jungle use. Lots of controllable firepower in a relatively small and light package. Might be my favourite implementation of this in a game, actually. I think because it feels so appropriate to the setting and the period, as well as being well done.
And his screaming.
And the screaming. Gotta admit, that really adds something.
It's funny when you stop firing in the middle of him screaming, it's like you're interrupting him. So it's just like dead cut, like, oh, excuse me. Oh, I need to check myself.
I do apologise. Did you happen to notice when he's reloading, is he using the cocking handle under the handguard?
He is, yeah.
That's unique to this setup of the Stoner 63. The so-called Bren style light machine gun doesn't use that. It has the normal cocking setup. Right, slight mistake there is that the bracket for the belt box has this very substantial metal support because the box itself is just a lightweight plastic container with no means of clipping onto the bottom of the gun. So they've either modelled a different belt box setup that I'm not familiar with. The most famous setup being a big drum mag, by the way, which isn't on this or the game gun. But yeah, it doesn't clip straight onto the bottom of the gun as implied in the game. There is a whole attached sort of armature here for the belt box to slide into. So they haven't represented that. The gun itself looks good.
Because I think Sigan does mention that the variant you've got there is the light machine gun variant, also eschewing the customization options.
There was a bipod available for these, but the ones used in Vietnam didn't have them fitted. It's questionably a light machine gun if it has no bipod. More of a quote-unquote assault machine gun, as the modern term would have it. Or a squad automatic weapon, if you prefer. Although, of course, lots of squad automatic weapons do have bipods. Start putting these away on the other side of the trolley, running out of the room. That is interesting. I'm going to pause there to just take in the wonder of this quad machine gun. Having not long recently rewatched Furiosa, the Octoboss has a quad AK gun on the front of his flying thing that he has, with the magazines sticking out at similar angles. So that's quite reminiscent of that. The way the guns are arrayed, though, my brain jumps to Duke Nukem 3D for some reason with that, the 4-barrel. But they're flat. They're arrayed flat. This is not. Oh, actually, we have I think it's a MiG-23 gun pack. The guns in that are arrayed a little bit like this. If I can get a picture of that for you, I will. Otherwise, Google it.
Well, this is a Vladov weapon, so there's the Eastern Bloc Soviet connection.
I think it's probably coincidence in this case because if you're mounting guns in the belly of an aircraft rather than in the nose or on the wings or wing root or something, or in pods, you kind of have to array them like that to sit with the shape of the fuselage. What look like gas tubes on the barrels make this look like it might be a bit more conventional in operation, but we'll see.
So for more context, this is one of the heavy weapons. So you'll see it deployed over the chest. So those things at the back are going over each shoulder. But to add to its feeling of weight, at the front you can see tiny rocket boosters.
I can!
Trying to take some of the weight off the user, yeah.
That's fun, and a nod to physics, albeit, I guess, while simultaneously thumbing your nose at physics. In this building, there is not on display, unfortunately, a 20mm Oerlikon cannon. It's just one gun, not four, but that is you'll have seen this with that and other systems on board ship in particular, where you strap yourself onto the gun rather than the gun onto you. And that's on a pedestal mount, and they're there to help keep you in place and cushion you from the vibration of the weapon as it fires. I suspect this is inspired by those crew-served weapons on board ships in particular. Maybe on technical type vehicles as well. Oh, the optic working a bit like an X-Wing targeting computer is fun as well. Oh yeah, this looks like great fun. Reciprocating barrels. So if it is gas operated, there's some kind of recoil mitigation going on with the barrels cycling back and forth. I think in reality that's just cool factor. Think 8080 or AT-AT as we used to call it when I was a kid. Chin guns that do this because it just looks cool. I'd love to know where exactly you're stowing that when it goes down out of sight. Yeah, that's my favourite so far. Massive 4-barrel cannon thing.
I thought you'd be taken with that one.
Right, here is sort of an old friend of mine and something that we have been tracking through various games over time because it's in more games than you might think, but it's by no means as common as something like an M4. It is, of course, our old friend, the S.A.A.T. At the very least, I developed Stockholm Syndrome for it, writing a big book that has 3 chapters. And this is a very good-looking L85A3. I think it is pretty spot on. Normally there's a big, dare I say, bollock drop somewhere in someone modeling this thing, whether for lack of reference materials or just not really caring enough. Well, in certain cases, deliberately made different. This, like most of the guns, if not all the guns I've seen so far from this game, they've done a very creditable effort at making it look exactly like a real one, which is kind of what I'm looking for. The only glaring thing for me, and I think I'm right in saying none of these are in service anymore, correct me if I'm wrong, people who are in, not that I've ever been in, is the H-key, not key mod, but H-key handguard that's on there. So that was on the first, I guess, couple of thousand, something like that, maybe even fewer. And then, as far as I know, Fleet replaced with the modernized M-Lock version with the square rectangular slots, not the little keyhole-shaped slots. So they're reference material for this. It'd be ironic if it was my book. It probably wasn't. It was probably some reference material from the launch of this thing back in, well, I guess it was announced late 2016. God, was it that long ago? I think it was. More so in 2017. And then as it came into service proper, the early ones, all the ones they showed had that. So completely understandable. They have the color difference. So there's the desert tan Cerakote, but then there's the brownish colored handguard. There are actually 3 different patterns of this handguard I learned only recently. And here we have the very first pattern on this rather interesting beast, which is technically not an L85A3. And I've cleverly put this laser light module on here. This is a dummy one, but it's a real dummy one, if that makes sense, made by Ryan Natal. You will see this in service. So yeah, early pattern handguard. Somewhat different. Where's the giveaway? So number of slots. So the one number of vents, I should say. The one you see there is very close to this, but it has only 4 long, slim, rectangular cooling slots on the top. The first pattern has more of them, and they're bigger. I think hands were getting a bit burned, so they went for something that was a bit less cooling. Otherwise, very close. Oh, and the slot goes from here for access to the gas block so that you can still mount stuff to that, in theory, is square on the service version, which is only in service very briefly, again, as far as I know, where it's round on this. So this is a developmental rifle. Also, it's the same color. It's overall Cerakoted. It doesn't have its own bronzy color like this one correctly does in the game. And then the big departure from a true L85A3, apart from being marked L85A2 still, is it's an A2 upper receiver or body, to which has been welded a Picatinny rail in lieu of. So they've cut off the old NATO rail and they have welded on something that gives it that full length rail. A true L85A3 will have an A3 pattern body made new by H&K, which has this by default and is stronger, uses electron beam welding, which you can spot from C-shaped welds that are not on this gun. I will have to see if I can see them. I think I might be able to see them on this one.
I was going to ask what those C shapes were.
Yeah, they're quite distinctive. So some A2s have replacement upper receivers with that style of welding. What they don't have is the continuous rail. They still have a NATO rail on there and then an adapter for Picatinny so that they can either mount a SUSAT sight or a lightweight day sight. Yeah, it's a complicated... The answer is it's complicated. No one asked the question, but that's fine.
You'd be pleased to know they've lent into it being a bullpup. Out of all the assault rifles, I think this one recoils most. This was quite hard to control, but it has the highest muzzle velocity out of all of the assault rifles. Obviously, because it's bullpup, it's got that long barrel.
But yeah, the high recoil is a head scratcher because this is 5.56. Okay, so I should say subjectively, a lot of people do say that bullpups that by default have a short stock. So all things being equal, yeah, they might have a bit more felt recoil. In reality, it's often not a problem, and certainly not with the L85 because it is not the lightest weapon in the world. Quite frankly, it's not excessively heavy for what it does. And as you rightly say, one of the things it does do is give you a over 20 inch barrel, actually 20.4 inches. So you get that full potential of the cartridge. Something I noticed actually looking at this prototype, the receiver on this is very square for practical reasons. And the original plastic handguard was sort of designed to match those lines. The HK handguard, although I think it looks very cool on the SA80, on this version, there's a slight discrepancy of square to round or to curved. And then on the service version, which is correctly represented here, there's an ever so slightly jarring detail of the square receiver suddenly turning into a curved handguard that ever so slightly ruins the lines.
I'd love to get your thoughts on the reload because that is something that has always... Whenever this weapon has appeared in game, the reload has always been an element that's either done very well or not, let's say.
Yes. The bringing up the spare mag and doing a reload. I think what I just saw was bring up fresh mag, press mag catch with thumb, pull out empty mag. Yes, that's doable. You need long fingers. I've never seen anyone do it in real life. But I think it's doable. And I did it. I fudged it slightly because I don't want to scratch any more Cerakote off this than it's already had in its prototype career. It's on loan. But yeah, it's doable. Ironically, the mag catch shroud that was so necessary on the A1 and is carried through to the A2 and A3 does get in the way of that reload slightly. That's the partial reload. We need to see a reload from empty. Yeah, this is what I thought. So I did, in the campaign, grab one of these off a dead Merc, because I thought I've got to have a go with that. And I did have a bolt lock reload, and I noticed the reach over and pull back the cocking handle method. Now that would work, but it would also make your drill sergeant cry, or make you cry, more realistically. Let's just run through exactly what we saw there. So we have magazine on. It's gone empty. The weapon locks open. You need to reload. Swap magazines. We won't do that because it will keep it locked open. And then they're reaching over and releasing the working parts by pulling back on the cocking handle. Just as you can do on pretty much any firearm. pistol, rifle, whatever, if you're not familiar with how it works. So if we postulate that the user here hasn't had much familiarity with S.T.A.L.K.E.R, we actually saw this with one of the YouTubers that got his hands on an S.T.A.L.K.E.R, didn't know how to use it, didn't know where the bolt hold open was. He actually commented that it was a design flaw that you had to reach over and do exactly what we've seen in the game. Failing to realise, and if we manually lock open, which is what this lever here is for, we can see that, and flip it over, we can see that we do in fact have a bolt lock. So, weapon is empty, magazine off, magazine on, and then we simply reach over and pull down with the thumb without even, like, so hands still on the magazine, reach up, pull down, and the weapon is rechambered, ready to fight. People often say how terrible the ergonomics on the S.T.A.L.K.E.R are. Yeah, there's a bit more to learn and a bit more hands flying around the weapon, but it really isn't that bad, and the reload is just as fast, really. The only thing that slows you down slightly is the magazine well-being at the back of the weapon. We timed a reload, or a series of reloads, with someone who was very skilled, with a DeMarco SF weapon and an A2, and the difference was negligible, quite frankly. It was less than this. It was less than a second. It's in one of the notes in my book, anyway. Not significant unless you were having to stand in the face of the enemy, taking fire and doing reloads, which isn't really very realistic anyway. It's not a material difference that I would say would matter.
This made me laugh. Look at the name of the guy that I that I killed.
Made in England. Ah, yeah.
While I was using the L85A3, I was like, of all the weapons I could have been using.
Yes. I think, and I've said this before about something else, and maybe it's because we're starting from a low bar, but I think this is probably the best S.T.A.L.K.E.R out there in games.
I'd definitely say it's up there.
I can't think of a better one. The fact that they even modelled the electron beam welding on the upper receiver, there's actually nothing that I can see wrong with it. It's just that the handguard is an early pattern. So, nice job. There's a big old round, not big, it's small, but relatively bigger than what it used to be, a round steel pin on the change lever to stop the change lever. So that used to be a little half moon pressing, like on the bottom one, and there was an issue there. So one of the changes they made, which has been made to this one as well, is a big steel pin there, so that there's no way this thing can over rotate and cause you a problem. So that is a tiny detail of the A3 that I'm not sure is on this.
Having gone back to the 3D view and doing a zoom and enhance, there is a pin above that lever.
There we go. That's the level of detail. Absolutely not needed. Unless they knew I was going to be criticising.
At this point, anyone developing a game and putting an S.A.L.K.E.R into it has got to assume that you might have something to say. So,
well, I'm going to say 9 out of 10, and that feels unfair because they weren't to know that this is replaced. So I feel bad about it, but 9 out of 10. Excellent. By far the best.
So we've shown you a bunch of stuff over the last 12 months, but is there any that stick out to you? Either as your most favourite weapon or game you've seen, the most cursed weapon or game that you've seen, anything from the last 12 months of us making videos together that you think, you know, that was a good one, or that was really not so much.
And I don't know if this is because I've seen it more recently and I've been playing a lot with it, and it's not perfect. But the L85A3 from Battlefield 6, I think, has to be the best S.A.L.K.E.R in a video game. So if they could just fix the weird reload where the magazine goes through the magazine catch shroud, which I missed initially because I was so excited at how good it was. And even more importantly, the fact that it doesn't lock open at the end of a magazine, I'm not quite sure how that went wrong. But apart from that, it's visually really good. As much as you can represent how a bullpup handles in a first-person shooter, it feels like it handles really well. Lots of detail. I remember raving about the shape of the welds on the receiver, which is a minor point, but it sells it to people who know. Yeah, I like it. I don't like the weird cursed versions that crop up in campaign where they've got different. Well, I suppose I need to throw in the multiplayer choices, but they're choices. People are free to modify their guns as they see fit. But in the campaign, they show up. I think they show up with different barrel lengths, and they all show up with no muzzle devices. And if I had a gripe about Battlefield 6 overall, if anyone's listening, it's that the campaign has no muzzle devices on 90% of the guns, and it's quite distracting. But that doesn't just apply to the S.T.A.L.K.E.R. But the S.T.A.L.K.E.R, really good job. A couple of minor changes, really. They're not minor changes, are they? They require a fair bit of... The hold open might be easier to fix than the animation for the reload. They may not get around to that, but I do rate it.
Yeah, it was good to see a good one, and I think that's why when we did the episode earlier last year, that we spent quite a lot of time talking about the L85, especially in the director's cut version. That was like a big chunk of that episode. But like you said, for good reason. What about in terms of curse stuff? Does anything come to mind as the most cursed thing I've seen?
Yep.
I've showed you this year, because
Yep.
it starts to blend together for me.
Yep. It does for me too, but the zombie tiki roller coaster gun has to take the cake, possibly of all time. As you can visibly watch the will to live drain as I try and work out what I'm looking at. But then get all conflicted because there's so much work gone into it, and it's kind of clever and sort of cool. I just can't.
For you, is it because it's supposed to be on top of a real gun? If this was just a thing that some, Sid from Toy Story-esque gunsmith made in a virtual environment, would it be less intense, do you think?
It's just so weirdly out of place. That whole thing that we've gone from, I think we've said, gold plating, like a virtual representation of gold plating or chrome or nickel, whatever, to like tiger stripe. But then real guns exist that have that, and they sort of the silly Gucci guns are growing alongside the game version. Then you start getting animated skins where you can't replicate. Oh, middle step. Dips. So dip finishes where you have skulls or whatever on your gun. Very similar to video game skins, but then we've kind of lost the plot. We've gone off in a direction that the real world can't follow. Life can't imitate art when it's an animated skin, and then when it's a modelled skin, I assume that's actual 3D modelling going on to create all that craziness. Like there was the World War II one, which I had to admit was cool, but again, weirdly out of place.
Oh, the one in Call of Duty Mobile on top of the MG42, and it's a whole D-Day scene.
Yeah, it's undeniably clever and well made. It's just not for me. I'm sorry.
What about any movies that have stood out for you? Because we've covered a few movies over the past 12 months. I'm not the best at keeping up with cinema and things like that. In fact, I've been watching old stuff. Instead of watching the new Running Man, I went and watched the original. But is there anything in terms of movies that has stuck out to you as either done really well or the inverse of that?
Well, a few, I suppose. But in terms of new stuff, I thought Ballerina was pleasingly good, both on the cool gun stuff and not being too... Well, it's crazy, but in the right ways. Sinners, with my favourite use of a Tommy gun in cinematic history, I think. And that's a tough act to live up to. And it's a vampire movie, which I also love. And of the stuff we've reviewed, real pleasure to get to sit down and talk nerdy for fun and profit, effectively, about Hot Fuzz, of course, and Die Hard, and just classic films that I love. The Matrix is in there as well. We've done so. It's a bit the fact that you're now able to cover movies and TV and other stuff is great.
We're very blessed to do so, and inevitably, I want to do the Commando episode, because that's we're recording this just before breaking up for Christmas, and over Christmas I always watch classic action films while I wrap my Christmas presents. I don't know why it's a tradition. So it always makes me start thinking about Commando. We did the Die Hard video. We have years and years of cinema that we can sit down and talk about. There was a moment in the H3 video we did when you referenced the giant AR-15 in Weapons, and I hadn't seen Weapons. I just trusted that reference was apt, and I was like, I've heard hell of a big AR-15 in that, but I'd not actually seen that clip. And then when Chris was editing the episode together and I saw it, I was like, damn, that is a big AR-15 floating above a house.
I suppose I must mention and praise Anton and H3VR for all the various great things that he's come up with, and the kind of mixed blessing of a weapon, a game gun that is a tribute to me, effectively. Oh no, you've done it! Utter bastards. Oh, that was such a bait and switch.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, I hate you so much. In fact, there we go. The EM5F. I say mixed blessing because it's unbullpupped, as if you couldn't tell from that image, and makes me twitch, and it's just not right. But at the same time, they've got an EM2 that's really good. Real mixture of very faithful, well done guns that you get to interact with in a way that you don't get to in basically any other game, and then crazy stuff.
It is a really bizarre feeling to go from the work we used to do together to starting this new channel, you wonderful folks agreeing to continue working with us having a silly off-the-cuff conversation about a game, that then being introduced into the game as an homage to that conversation, then turning that virtual version into a piece of merchandise, and then people sending in pictures in our Discord of them wearing that merchandise or mounting that poster. And it's all happened within 12 months. Every now and again I have to stop and be like, this is so weird, but it's like amazing. Like it's absolutely great.
It's wonderful. And as I haven't shown any guns, I mentioned Hot Fuzz. Hold that thought.
He's going to jump through the air while screaming and shoot his gun.
So, when I had a wonderful time talking about Hot Fuzz, one of my favourite films of all time, one of the most iconic weapons in that movie is the PT-92 AFS in 9mm Simon Pegg wields, including in the firing two guns while jumping through the air scene. And I had to show you a 40 Smith & Wesson, a 40 caliber version, because we didn't have the stainless 9mm 92 AFS. It wasn't quite the right gun, which made me a little sad. Well, I have realised that deep in storage, as yet uncatalogued, we did in fact have one the whole time. So if we ever cover Hot Fuzz again, I will be clone correct, as they say. So I'm very happy to have the same pistol that Nicholas Angel uses.
To do a bit of Mythbusters-esque science, we need to figure out a safe way for us to
I know where this is going.
dive through the air, shooting two guns while going but I'm not
I'm
sure
already
what
thinking of well, no, there'd be ways to do it. I'm just not sure if we could pull that off.
The insurance overheads would be an absolute nightmare.
The way to do it safely would be with simunitions or something, but it's not quite the same, is it? But then it's not the same when they do it. They do it with blanks, so...
Well, there's plenty of stuff to come out. Movies, TV shows, games, and beyond over the next year, so I'm sure we'll have more to talk about. Is there anything that you're excited to play or talk about? Apprehensive to play or talk about?
Oh, I'm blanking a little on what's coming out next year.
The next... GTA 6, apparently, if it doesn't get delayed again.
Who believes that? Well, I have a huge backlog of stuff that I need to get around to. My oldest friend, Pete, who, if you see this, Pete, hello, is practically tearing his hair out that I still haven't played The Last of Us. So I will have to set aside time to play that and just leave all these newfangled things to one side for the moment, I think.
All right, lovely stuff. Well, thank you for joining us for another year. Thank you for speaking on this in this little compilation. I think we rounded out a good selection of good and cursed, and I'm sure there'll be lots to come over the next year as well.
I'm sure too. I mean, you've hit some new lows this year with the curse stuff, so maybe we should just leave that now. Maybe we're done.
I've seen the bar and I'm prepared to limbo right under that bad boy.